everyone. It's been a bit. I know I need to stop saying that, but it's been a bit. And life got a little hectic and all that kind of thing, but I'm back. Again, I'm not making any promises. I just enjoy making these videos, and I like sharing things with you, and so that's why I'm here. I'm recreating, and just making videos when I feel like it. So, when I have time to. So, first I'm going to talk about a couple of books that I finished towards the end of 2023. Didn't have a great end of the year, but I'm going to talk about a couple of the books in October, November, December-ish time frame. And then I'm going to talk about the 7 books, I know, 6 technically, but 7 books that I read in the month of January. I had a really, really good reading month, and I'm just hoping to keep that stride going. So, without further ado, let's talk about a couple of the books that I read towards the end of last year. I'm going to just briefly touch on them. The first book that I finished right at the end of December was Magnus Chase, Hammer of Thor, Magnus Chase and the Gods of Asgard, The Hammer of Thor. I finished this book in December, I think, like end of the year. Enjoyed it, and then immediately jumped into the third one, which I will talk about in a minute. And yeah, I enjoyed reading this book. It was I think it was a 4.5 or a 5 star for me. And then the other 2 books are the book club books that I had in October and November. I think this is the correct order. Either way. One of them was The Soviet Sisters by Annika Scott. I really enjoyed this book. It's told in dual perspective, dual timeline, and takes place during the Cold War. And, you know, you're kind of figuring out the story in 2 perspectives and 2 different orders and what's happening. And I would highly, if you enjoy historical fiction novels and learning about history in a way that is told in a fictional novel format, I highly recommend this book. It was a great book. I really enjoyed a lot of these pieces, and there's a lot of questions, and it provided a lot of good discussion at our book club meeting. So that was fun. The other book that we read in October or November, I cannot remember which one is which, and that is The Miniaturist by Jessie Burton. This has mixed reviews from me and my book club. I would say it was good and interesting, and there were pieces that then I hit a certain point in the book and I just wanted to keep reading. However, there were a lot of writing questions and things that made pieces of this book very hard to get into. It is described as magical realism. It you enjoy pieces of like fantasy and magic, it doesn't follow through on what I was hoping it would be. It is an interesting, it takes place in 1606. So the time period was really fun for me to read in. But there were also a lot of pieces that I had a hard time. It was really hard to get into. Just say that. I still think I gave it 4 stars. I don't quite remember. But it has also been made into a mini series on PBS, BBC, and so my book club and I are actually watching that this week to see how it compares. Hopefully the show is better than overall what we thought the book was. I'll say that. So that wraps up the books that I read last year. Now to get into all of the books that I read in January. I have my laptop here so that I can remember what order I read everything in, because I don't remember completely. So the first book that I read of the year was a book that I got for Christmas. And I don't know if I've talked about her much on this channel, but Mary, Queen of Scots is my favorite historical figure. I talk about her constantly. My family jokes that what if I find out one day that I'm related to her, that I will just cease to exist, that kind of thing. I love her story. This is a just fun picture book that I got for Christmas that I just picked up on a whim, like right at the beginning of the year. And I love it. It's just so fun. I just love it. It just tells the story of, and the artistry is just so, like, the colors, the pictures are so pretty. This specific book talks of, one of the times when she was captured and kept hostage in her escape. And she just has a, harrowing story and her arc, and she became queen at 6 days old, and I could talk about her for hours and hours, which I will not do. However, highly recommend this as an intro, and to any children who are interested in Scottish history. This is definitely a highly recommend book. That's why I said that I technically read 6, even though I read 7. That is also going to count, and I'm going to try and talk about this more. I am attempting for technically the 3rd year in a row, 2nd full year, but 3rd year, the Book Riot Read Harder Challenge, which they basically create 24 challenges a year, 23, and then you get to pick a challenge from a previous year that maybe you didn't get to, or one that was in a year that you didn't participate in. And it gives prompts that pushes you outside of your reading comfort zone. And it helps to support stories that feature LGBTQ plus community, people of color, anything out of like the traditional realm that is most often publicized in a way. And so the challenges this year, I could do actually a whole video on this specifically at some point, but I read 2 books this month that fit, actually 3 books, I'm ahead, 3 books this month that count for 3 different challenges. So the Mary Queen of Scots book, I am counting for read a picture book published in the last 5 years, because it was published in October of 2018. And so when I read it in January, it had been within that 5-year increment. That one would not have been a hard thing for me to complete in any way, shape, or form. And if I happen to pick up a book that will be a better fit, I'll switch it out at some point. But I, just for ease of that challenge, that is not a hard challenge for me, I'm going to just count that one as complete and then move on from there. And I actually am using their reading log as my kind of, I still use Goodreads, but this is kind of a reading log to help keep track of what you're reading and when you complete them. So they're all on a list. So I've been using their reading log for the last couple of years to keep track of what I read. So then the second book that I finished this month, which I read, I think in like a day, was Neon Gods by Katee Robert. I plan to pick up more of the books in this series. This is a dark retelling of the Persephone Hades myth in Greek mythology. It is definitely adult. It is very spicy. I very much enjoyed it. But it was definitely a different retelling. And I believe that this is kind of the world that this author is writing in, that it's kind of this like city above. Olympus is this city that all of the 12 main gods live in the upper world, and Hades and a chosen few, and they live in the below, and it's forbidden to go there, and very dark and mysterious and all these things. And so they talk of the gods, and you're mortal of sorts, and there's just the king of the area is the Zeus. So then when the current Zeus passes, he will then become his son will become the next Zeus, basically. So yeah, that is, I would like to read more because they are all spicy. So that I think will be fun to read Greek myth in that way. But yes, this one was very good. So if you enjoy Greek myth and you enjoy a good spicy book, I highly recommend. I'm not gonna talk about this anymore because I don't want to say anything more. Okay. The next book that I read this month is also for the Read Harder Challenge this year, and that is The Tea Dragon Society by Kay O'Neill. Look at that cute little cover there. I read it on my Kindle with Kindle Unlimited, and it was just a cute little graphic novel about these, little woodland, this little community, and that they are raising dragons who make tea. It was very cute. And that book counted for read a cozy fantasy book. That was the best choice I could have made to read a cozy fantasy book. Loved it. Absolutely loved it. Highly recommend. Okay, then the next book that I read, these are not in order because I'm chaotic, was The Ship of the Dead by Rick Riordan. And I have officially completed the Magnus Chase trilogy. I really did enjoy these books. Reading these on audio, listening to these on audiobook saved this series for me, because I just haven't been able to sit down and get into this series as much as I hoped I would have been able to. And I did really enjoy the narrator for these audiobooks, which was lovely, because no offense to the narrator, but I cannot listen to the main two series of Percy Jackson and the Olympians and then Heroes of Olympus. I cannot listen to those on audio. I have read them too much on my own and have it in my own head that listening to the audiobook was just very jarring for me. The audio narrator was doing a wonderful job. I just couldn't. I've read it so much on my own and had grown up with it that I just could not read those and listen to those, which is unfortunate because I would love to just have those as comfort audiobooks to just listen to and live with the story, but I can't. Maybe these books will become that. But yes, so I really enjoyed this trilogy that wraps up the trilogy. I've officially read Magnus Chase, and that took 2 books off of my TBR pile, which was a very good feeling. Cool. Then the next book I picked up was 9 Worlds. 9 from the 9 Worlds by Rick Riordan. They are basically a bunch of mini stories. They take place on each of the 9 worlds, with a little bit of an overarching funny haha throughout it. I want to show you, there's also full color illustrations of, this is Halfborn, Gunderson, and Mallory. So there's full color illustrations of what, there's Alex in all their glory. But so basically there's the characters within the Magnus Chase series, they each narrate a story that took place in the 9 worlds at some point after the main trilogy. It's very important to read this book after you've read the trilogy. Because there are spoilers in this that they don't talk about before. Okay, and then the last 2 books of the month were book club books. So I need to pull up the other one on my Kindle because one of them I read on my Nook or on my Kindle. The first book that I read, and I don't have it physically because I lent it to somebody, but I do have the dust jacket, was Warrior Girl on Earth by Angeline Boulley. This is a sequel, like an in the same world sequel to Firekeeper's Daughter by Angeline Boulley. It takes place in Michigan on Sugar Island up near Mackinac, and this book was so good. It opened my eyes to a lot of things within the Native American community in Michigan and the impact that grave robbing and museums and people who are doing wrong and have taken things and just gave me a lot of insight as a soon-to-be history person that hopes to work in a museum and help cultivate proper culture and enjoyment and knowledge throughout looking at and just taking in new things. And this opened my eyes to a lot of the negative effects that different relationships with museums have on the Native American community within, their burial rights and just everything. I highly, highly, highly recommend this book. It was very, very good. 5 out of 5 stars. So good. And then the last book that I read in the month of January was The Reading List by Sarah Nisha Adams. I had a little bit of difficulty getting into this book, but I listened to most of it. I kind of went on and off. I read a bit, listened to a bit, read a bit, listened to a bit. And listening to it really helped me kind of get into the voices of the characters. And I hit about the halfway, 3/4 of the way through mark and picked up the physical book and the ebook, and could not stop reading it until I got to the end. It is definitely a book that takes you a little bit to get into it. But by the time I got to the end, it was a fantastic read. And there was just a lot of things towards the end that were very gripping. So yes. Anyway, I have rambled on for long enough. That is all I have for this video today. I am about to film my TBR video for February. I have quite a few books on that stack over there. It's a little terrifying, but I also had 11 books on this TBR and I read 7 of them. So we will see how well I do this month. I am going to finish up filming these videos and then listen to audiobooks and read and things for the rest of the evening. So yeah, thank you guys so much for watching, and I'll see you guys in my next video. Goodbye.